Sensie Owl Bob, this guy right here, your shaman griot here to tell you a story. And don't believe a word I say. Hey, and remember, subscribe, hit that bell, do those likes. You know, the other thing, I want to have a little experiment. Some of you, if you want to, you don't like it because I'm just seeing if that draws more people. They say that when you have like consternation on the social media, you get more eyeballs. So we'll see about that. So here we are. I haven't really been on the air for, at least 5 days or four or something. Because one, I was going to have my hip replaced, right? And so I was preparing for that. I was meditating on in the deep green. And I don't have a car. My car died about a month ago. My Jesus wagon, my soccer mom little Quest. It was a great little thing. I love that little bug. And when the churchy people bought it for me, they paid $800, right? And that's cool. I didn't have the $800, and everyone said, "Well, this thing will die in 2 days." I mean, the guy who they bought it from, so it don't expect much of this, and it had its issues. But I put new tires on it, so that got about 3 inches off the ground, and so I could drive it on the logging road. And I did a few things to it that made it run right better, and it had 320,000 miles on it. And I rode it around for a year and a half. I put 60,000 miles on it, so it was almost 400,000. And I don't know if you know North Carolina, but I was going to see my buddy down in Loren or Leicester, no, something between it, just down the mountain from Blowing Rock, and it's about a 25-mile up this, right? And my rods weren't that good. I mean, they would knock all the time, but once I got into like 20 miles of this, and I had another 15 to go, and it was going to get steeper and go back and forth and back and forth. And there's a cliff on one side and the mountain on the other side, and then the engine sounded like there were monkeys in it, hitting it with big hammers on the inside. So anyway, and then the engine gave out, and I was a cliff on one side, mountain on the other side. Lots of big trucks coming straight at me. And then there was an opening in the mountain, and it was somebody's driveway, and I just shot right up and went up there about maybe 200 yards and came to a thing and pulled over into the woods and put a rock under the tire, and that was it. Say no more. And then a guy who lived up there at the end of that park driveway, he said, "Oh, look," because steam was coming out of my engine and all that good stuff. And he went off and got some water, and we put it in there, and it didn't do much. And I was dummy. I kept the ignition on, so it killed the battery. Anyway, so it was up there, and he took me down like just a mile up. If I could have made it a mile more, I would have hit the mechanic that was on the road. And we went in there, and that guy knew him, and I explained exactly what happened, and he said, "Well, that's probably dead." And I had a bunch of stuff in it. So a friend of mine came and got me and took half the stuff. The next day we went back during the day and got the rest of the stuff and dropped off at the mechanic. He goes, "Oh, I'm going to go right by there." And I said, "Do you have jumper cables?" "Of course." I said, "You got a screwdriver?" "Sure, I got that." So I took those, and I was charging up the battery from my friend's car. And he showed up about 20 minutes later, and he just let it go and go. And he was talking about, they were both holler folks, so they were speaking holler. And, he got the engine running, but boy, the monkeys were still in my engine, and they were still smashing it with sledgehammers from the inside. But he backed it up deeper in the woods, so it was totally away from anyone's getting off the road. And he said, "Oh, I'll come back here someday and pull it off to my garage and see what I can do with it." So he did, and it's dead. So I need a new car. But the last month, I haven't been able to go nowhere without somebody coming to get me, right? And so I just put on the 3 shows that I did from this Sunday and maybe a day before. And they were really funny because I was around churchy people that were. Did you ever see the little Abner? Right, these 3 old ladies that are like the witches from Hamlet's, toil, 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 and trouble. Um, and you let that took a video, and they crack on everyone. And when I first met them, the only clean clothes was I got it from the box in our community center. So I had these polyester women's bell buttons that were Madras, the little wee kind of stuff, and real bright colors. And women don't have junk, so the pants go right close to their body, right? And so my junk was, hey, how you doing? Because I don't wear underpants. And so, I look like a monkey with a, hey, how you doing? And so that was right there. And I was wearing my pink cowboy boots and a Hawaiian shirt that kind of just covered, hey, how you doing? So unless you were really looking, you wouldn't see, hey, how you doing? So anyway, I had a black cape with a mink collar. So boy, the girls would just love. They cracked on me the whole time we drove, and I was laughing hysterically because they were funnier than heck. Most people would start to cry. And that's my intro into the thing I've been talking about, misogyny. What is misogyny? Any of you guys got the idea what misogyny is? Said hi. Hey, hi. Hey, how you doing? I like your junk. Hey, how you doing? Look at that junk. Hey, how you doing? Let's see your junk. Are you okay? I don't know. What do you think? Am I okay? Well, why I didn't get my hip replaced is because, ooh, it's better than a tree. It was a big acorn on the top of my friend's house. And he's got a steel roof. It looks like someone has been going at it with, hey, how you doing? So, my car died, and so to come up here and talk to you guys, I have to walk a mile and a mile down, right? So I couldn't even walk, when I signed up to get it was like the pain was so intense, and it was like shooting. If I, overextended my leg, I was, but now it's not so much, right? And it's tight, but it's not hurting, right? And I can, here, I'll show you. Come on. See, I couldn't do this before. I couldn't do this. I couldn't extend my leg like that without it screaming in pain. So anyway, I've been taking these non-dermal patches to wake up my stem cells. And so they're doing great. I mean, I've been taking them since March. My sweetie, my sis, she has whatever she does, but she called. I hear you're getting your heart done. You don't need to. You just need to take these. I'm sending you some patches. Just put them on every day, doesn't matter where. And so I did like 3 weeks before that. But I had a mechanical thing I needed replaced, and that operations is not a big deal. Like I said, just go up your groin, go up that big thing. They replace the valve. And I've been good. I mean, I was at a point where I couldn't breathe, right? So anyway, so I've been involved in the medical model since I was born. My mom ran hospitals, right? So you could never. So, and I was really sick. I mean, all my other brothers and sisters could never fake being sick, but I was always next to death. Like from birth to 10 years old. And that's why my mom handed me over to my grandma when I was a baby. She didn't want to deal with it. She already lost 2 other babies. If the third one died, they'd start to think, So I was with grandma, and I was being bread-fed by this black woman who had 2 doctorates. But after World War II, she had to become a cleaning lady. So she didn't just become a cleaning lady. She started her cleaning lady empire and employed all the young ladies who were misbegotten, and she gave them a job, a place to stay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's called community building. And that's why I've been involved in humanitarian work my whole freaking life. Let's see. A blind man walks by a fish stand and says, hello, ladies. How are you do? Now, is that misogynist? Or is that just because you're from Tipperary? And people don't know. Jamie, tell them about the Kerry Man jokes, right? And tell them about, how Ireland, every county disses each other. Like they were different religions, genders, species from another planet. If you're from Dingle and you're talking to somebody from Tipperary, it's like you're from another planet. And they're ready to kill you. What do you think the troubles were? And the troubles weren't just in Northern Ireland, right? Give everyone the 411 on that, Jamie. Let's see. R. I like that. R. Is that like are you a pirate? R. Right? Hello. Okay. Hello. Not at all. It's about fish. Okay. I was just being misogynist. See? And that's the problem. Misogyny isn't, something you can put on a hanger, you know? All of these things, and that's what leads to, when we had, slavery all the way up to 1965, and we still do. People don't realize left, right, Republican, Democrat, just two wings of the same corporate bird. People don't realize that this has been going on since, Babylon, right? It's, I was just reading Psalms, right? Towards the end of Psalms, it gets to another book that's named after a guy, and it kind of goes on about, all the different wars that Israel had. And it sounds just like today. It's like they haven't ever figured it out yet, how to get along, right? So they diss everyone to the point that everyone thinks we got to get rid of these guys. And and it didn't matter, in that thing after Psalms, the end of Psalms kind of gets into this next thing about all these wars and all that kind of stuff, right? And so if you're, read the Bible, read that. Because, see, the Bible, you're not supposed to be a Pharisee. You're not supposed to be a lawyer, right? It's not supposed to be, let's see, we heard about Northern Ireland also. No, Black Friday. Yep. Is Black Friday is when you get the sales, after New Year's? Yes, this is why the girls like me. I'm always erect, right? And see, I've never really ever thought about sex. Sex was never, you know. Now, I have a sex. I am a monkey boy, and so. But I was always thinking about other stuff. I was always talking to God. I was always interacting with people, not women, not guys, not, trying to be the manly man. I was always just being me. And people liked that, right? Girls really liked that. And I basically hung out, I'm an African American that's melanin challenged. I spent my early years up there in Harlem, sucking on Dr. Green's breasts, sharing them with my stepsister, right? My sister from another mother, Emily, and she was blacker than coal and had such beautiful little fuzzy hair and the cutest little button nose, and just always laughed and always was cracking on me, even when we couldn't speak, because we shared the same crib, right? And so I was never lonely, right? I had Emily as my twin. She was 4 months older than me, my older twin, and so that milk, I kept sucking on that tit until I was almost 3 years old. And by the time I was 3, we were out running around in the streets. And I never, kids played stickball, did all kinds of stuff, ran around, and there were all these people on the stoop, right? And so it was all grandmas. And so if you did something, why I love New York City, you could go 3 blocks in any direction and be in another country. I mean, if you screwed up in your neighborhood, you could go over there. They wouldn't even know you, right? And so that was what was my most favorite thing. Nope, you're not Monkey Boy, but more Santa Claus appearance. Yes. Now I'm Santa's younger brother, Bob Claus, and I am in charge of the naughty and nice list. So I'm always watching. How many of those little 8 thumbs up? Doing good. Somebody throw in a thumbs down just for fun, so I can see what it looks like. And you guys, subscribe, hit that bell, make some comments. Let's get this party started, right? So anyway, in that whole mishigash of everything from 125th Street up to the Harlem River, from the west side to the east side, every kind of from 30 something Street, 32nd Street, all the way up to where the mayor lived. Every 3 blocks was a different nationality. And not just Polish, Italian, Irish. No, Lithuania, Estonia, you name it, all the Baltic guys, the Russians, everyone, and not just those guys. The 20 different types of Ukrainian, the 15 different types of Spanish. Well, they were on the west side. We called them Caribbean, right? Up there, kind of near Columbia University, and also the big church building that what's his name had. The guy, and that church was everyone's church. I forgot what his Kaufman was the head dude there. He's sweet, nice guy. He was every social movement from like 1890 on, unions, blacks, white, you name it. He had space for everyone. That was the beauty of that place. And he had a theological university. The Jews had a theological university up there. There were 2 other, the Episcopalians and the WASP, and Columbia, and the girls' school. What was that? Barnard. So that was a really, like PS 122 was like going to Columbia, because there were all these people who were studying education and young people. And PS 122 was like kindergarten through high school. It was like everybody on the top there. And it was also like New York City had a very interesting education system, because it was there to educate the immigrants, A, to speak English, and how to be a proper cog in the machine, right? But they realized that there were a lot of pretty sharp, intelligent, talented people coming over. So they kind of, oh, look at that one. Send them up PS 122. They also had a school for arts and sciences. They also had one for theater and music. They had about 10 specialized schools, right? Let's see, what do you guys, Santa, yeah, Bob, Santa's younger brother. I have been a good boy this year. Okay, well, you know what I say. There's no such thing as a bad child. It's just a bad upbringing, right? Why aren't you giving us any presents? I am. I'm giving you my presents right here. This is a gift. This right here, I am present in the moment, talking to you. So, get a little sharper with your questions, kids. Let's talk about, what I was talking about, the Bible, right? And you know what? The Old Testament, first off, all Jews didn't even speak Hebrew. That was like the sacred language for the rich people, right? The Pharisees and the seraphim and the blah, 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 and the priests and the rabbis, and then the really special dudes who stayed in that little room. What are they doing in that little room? I don't know. There's always a mess on the floor, but I don't know. They talk to God. That's where the chamber is. Right, what chamber? Chamber pot? Chamber what? And virtually every religion's that way. It's special. And you people down there don't know anything about it. That's why you need, if you can read, you just read that King James book, right? And that's like, and here's some crayons. Now see what the real story about the King James, or any theological book on that level, like the Torah. There's 3 books. Most people who aren't Jewish don't know there are 3 books. And most people don't know that Sensie Owl Bob here not only went to school to be a Catholic priest, and my mentor at that was Cardinal Cushing. Go Google Cardinal Cushing. He's a trip. One of the first guys on TV, way before Billy Graham or anybody, it was Cardinal Cushing. And before him was you should check this guy out too, was Father Coughlin in the 30s. Woo, baby! Talk about free speech. Go look that guy up. So anyway, Cardinal Cushing was my mentor. I actually got water poured on me in St. Patrick's, and they didn't go to where the average rich person would get baptized if you were Catholic, but the really special one. Ooh! So I've always had a ooh kind of relationship with everyone else, right? So that's why you're getting a present, because my presence is right here with you. Do you agree about the Jonas Brothers in New York City? They didn't eat breakfast. Who the freaking cares? Have no idea. The only guy I ever knew who I could swear ate breakfast was John Lennon, because we used to have breakfast at this pharmacy that had a great counter and a place to develop film and the best magazine newspaper stand, because it was right across the street from Lincoln Center, where all the rich hoop-de-doos lived in condos, and like the guys, if you were in the UN and you were a special person and you didn't have consulate, you were living in that neighborhood. It's called the Upper East Side. Moving on up to the West East Side. The Upper West Side was pretty up, but not as up as the Upper. No, the Lincoln Center was right on the middle, right where 8th Avenue crossed Broadway. Times Square, that's where that happens, and a little lower down. So Lincoln Center was kind of on the west side, but also because Manhattan gets narrower up there. Actually gets big and then narrows, right? But anyway, I prefer the King James Version. Very nice rendition, right? Well, the Bible is a great book in any rendition. I mean, I've been given Bibles out, from our church. Last 5 years, they have 8 million brand new spanking Bibles, and they just have it when you walk in. There's like shelves and shelves and shelves of Bibles. Do they give them away? No. Do anyone take them? No. They're just like there for decoration. Like you put paintings on the wall. This church has just a zillion. So I used to just go in and fill a box with 10, 20, 40 Bibles and then go around to the homeless people and give it to them. Or I would have this big coat, like Captain Kangaroo, with big pockets. And when I went into Walmarts, I would have Bibles in them, right? And when I see someone working there who was like down in the dumps and just their energy was like, uh-oh, this person needs a cheering up. So I would go do it. And then when they were cheered up enough and they told me all their issues, I would give them a Bible, and they would start crying. I've been wanting to read this book for years, and I didn't know where to get a Bible. I said, well, here you go, buddy. Here's a Bible. Or I give them the New Testament, right? So, and I would go around, we helped run a food bank, and our food banks for 5 years were great. We had real food, Food Lion and Ingles were great, and Kroger's. All three were great. They gave us like real fresh fruit, deli meats cut up and packaged. I mean, really good stuff. Stuff that was going to wear out like in a day, and they gave it to us, right? Now, not so much. Now we have super processed foods. That's all we got. Super processed foods. Boom, 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 boom. Seeing who's on our road. Anyway, miss you, Zambada. Where are the deers? The deers, well, first of all, their habitat has been torn down so rich people can have their golf courses. And then when those guys are starting to eat the flowers in the clubhouse, they basically kill the deer and then take them someplace by the side of the road and let them rot, I had this old lady, old holler woman, who I used to go take to the doctors. And anytime we would drive by a deer, right? She said, stop here. And, she took out this like cooking thermometer and stuck it into the deer. and she could tell when it was dead by the temperature, right? And also what insects were like coming out of its nose and eyes and ears. And she would, you got your cell phone? I said, yes. And she'd call up her son, and he would come and get it and, cut it up right there into steaks. Now, that's a real holler person, right? No, 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 no wasting anything. I think Jews look old. Not the girls. I dated a lot of Jewish girls. Woo-wee. I didn't date, but so I lived in Waynesburg, Brooklyn, right before any artist, before anybody, Now, oh yes, there's condos there. I mean, no, before that there was a Hasidim and Lubavitcher, right, and Hispanic, and those and the Hispanic worked for the Jews in their crappy before China. There was Hasidim and Lubavitcher and Williamsburg, Brooklyn, making the crappy stuff we now buy in Walmarts from China. They were making it there in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Anyway, right between the Domino's Sugar Factory and the some beer, because that side of Brooklyn up to Queens, where PS1 is, was all tanneries and chemistry, and they would just dump the nastiest shit into the East River. And of the video was fantastic. Okay, that's good. Kids, comment. I don't have my glasses with me, or do I? I might have them. Let's see. Let's see if I have my glasses with me. No, I didn't stick them in there. So you guys got to put everything in capitals so I can actually read what you're saying, because I want to. Today, no, as the king of humming, following his untimely demise in Singapore on September. Okay. Well, whenever we go is when I've died 7 times, and 3 times really died, but not died all the way. Let's see. Somebody put something up. This is held in review. Okay, let's view the message. Show. Come on, show. Show. Come on. It's Santa Claus. That's... Santa Claus lives in your heart, kids. Right, and that person at least was good to put it in caps. I believe in. Now, there's a real difference between faith and belief. Belief is just a fleeting kind of thing there. You really got no skin in the game. Faith is something that is given to you by the higher powers, right? So you can't manifest safe. You can't manifest faith. It is given to you. Have you ever used that beard as a mask, like put it above your lips? Well, when I need kind of, a weed whacker to see. I used to have people who would trim this really nice. When this is trimmed really nice, it looks. But I'm out in the middle of the woods, and I have no water, no shower, no toilet. When I died in 2014, and I came back, and I, clawed myself up to where I wasn't gonna die. I'd lost 60 pounds, and cleaned out my colon, and things were kind of working. I knew that if I just went back to the corporate world I had been working in, I'd just die again. So I didn't. I gave Jesus was asked by the rich man, how do I get into heaven, Jesus? Well, who do I have to pay? And Jesus said, no, it doesn't work that way. Sell everything, give it to the poor. That's what I did. And I sold about 15 pieces of property, all my investments, everything. And I've been a humanitarian pretty much my whole life. I've been involved in all kinds of stuff. I've told you tons of stories. Just go back and look at his channel. I'm not going to tell you all those stories over and over and over again. Why should I? You go look at the shows. Come on. And I would suggest that you guys start take. There are a lot of there was a young lad who I care about all of you, but there was a guy named Dragon, and he used to take it down and put it on his server, and he put it on thumb drives and send me thumb drives and et cetera, et cetera. And he'd send me little care packages with drawings and bottles of wine and all kinds of great stuff. And then one day I hit the wrong button. I kind of took everyone off the channel and couldn't figure out how to go back. And he was like, and he drops in every now and then, right? And that's great. I love all the old cadre, really great, right? And they all, they've gotten children. They've done. I mean, I've been doing this thing almost 10 years. So they drop in once in a while. Jamie is the one who kind of always stays and knows to put it in capital letters so I can actually read it. Uncle, do you know? Well, see, I can't read that. Galazare Club. I can't read it. I can't even pronounce it. The clubs that I worked on are, right? I worked on 54 the second time. I worked on, I turned, Fillmore East into the Saint. I did Kamikazes, Xenons, the Tunnel Club, Regimes, Danceteria, Mud Club, and Wetlands. Those are clubs. And then at other clubs like Save the Robots, like Lower East Side abandoned building nightclubs, So, boop, 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 boop. What is the best wisdom you can give? Know thyself, right? And how do you do that? How do you do that, Sensie Owl Bob? How do I know myself? You know how you do that? Just, what God did? He created us, right? We are, they're in my image and likeness. No, we are a mirror. God looks at us and sees what we do and goes, oh my God, that's what I'm doing now? Oh, read the Old Testament, read the Torah. You know what Torah? So none of the Jews read Hebrew. They read Greek because that was the business language of the time. It's just like most people know English, kind of, right? Or French or Spanish or German or English, right? Those are like the empire languages. So anyway, Hebrews didn't know Hebrew. They knew Greek. So the Torah, right, the word Torah translated into Greek and then taken into English means you suck. And if you read the Old Testament, which is the Torah, it's all about God going on about, Israel being like, especially everything from, and in the beginning up until Exodus, that whole thing is Larry's begetting Bob and Bob Susie and Susie with Mary and it's like this one long thing of begatting, and what is that? That is, this is what, certain, I can't even pronounce it, but certain groups, sects, let's say, not sex, S-C-X, but S-E-C-T-S, sex, think that, begatten means fornication. It's fornication. Fornication. Oh, that's fornication. Ooh, that's fornication. No. You know what fornication is? There's sin. No, there's the I was going to say the occult sin and the esoteric. No, there is the sin of omission and commission, right? Now, commission is we are morons and we do stupid things all the time. And the Pharisees, to make a good buck, just like the Catholic Church, put price tags on sin. So that's the commission. Everyone does it. You feel bad. Now, see, it's given to us it's a gift. Why we left the circus tent was that we went out into the wide world, into this earth, and this is the Garden of Paradise. I live here, right? Like here. Look at this. That's where I live, and this is like the developed section, right? This ain't even all the big trees shot out of the ground with the big storm. So, but this, this ain't even the thick of it. This ain't where the deep green where I live, right? But so we're in the Garden of Eden, and most people don't know. That's why we destroy it. Someone asked me what happened to the deer. Well, we're destroying their habitat, and so the deer get messed up with us. We kill them, and we give them diseases. They eat the wrong shit, they die, and pretty much, and then different corporate entities say, oh, we can't even talk about that. That's like, oh, if we mention that, that's like, oh, that's terrible. That's like we have to, but we want to have free will to talk about what we want to talk about, so we'll do that, right? So, but we're making rules, so you can't talk about that's like, oh, whatever. You can't say genocide. Mm-mm-mm. You can't say deer genocide. Nope. Mm-mm. Bear genocide. Mm-mm-mm. Salmon genocide. Nope. Nope. Can't say that. And we're going to get rid of EPA. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of NOAA. We're going to get rid of all of this, right? And if the Democrats don't bend a knee and kiss my penis, then and it's a small penis, so it's not like I really had to kiss a big penis, but if you don't do that, I'm going to fire everybody that works for the government, and you'll see how you like that. Except for the stuff that I want. The stuff I want will keep going. And we're going to change the name of everything. Like it used to be the War Department during this, when we were having war, right? When before, 1492 up to 1776, that was more genocide, right? Chris came over looking how to get to India, and he bumped into the Caribbean and, went to Hispaniola, which is Haiti and Dominican Republic. And there were 6 million indigenous people that had a great empire, that had gold, and they had trade with everyone in North and South America and India and China and Africa. And so basically, Chris didn't, he knew nothing, and the crew, all the boats, the Linka, Pinka, and Dinka, those 3 boats that the Queen of Spain gave to Chris, she just took criminals out of Huskow and put them on the boat and said, "Okay, go find India." And they didn't know how to sail. They didn't know what they're doing. They couldn't even see the stars, and so they ran into the Caribbean, and they were, dying of scurvy. The Indians went up there, made them feel good, brought them back to life, and Chris said, what Chris could do, could write in the book and be very descriptive. Buy physical gold, because, no, kids, I hate to tell you this, but back in the 30s, when the Federal Reserve was made, they made it illegal to own gold, right? You can only have so many grams. You can only have certain coins, like there's a old coins, right? That you like, I'm a coin collector. You can have those coins, right? And so anything that's less than 6 grams, or I think it might even be less, of gold. Otherwise, you got to turn it in, right? And so and then in 72, they took the gold out of blocks and then made us, we humans, everything. We were already a corporation, but they made us property. If you go and see, Admiralty law, you know what Admiralty law is, kids? Go. What's his name? It's a big guy, and he talks about Admiralty law all the time. And his name will pop into my mind. But anyway, bottom line, if you go into a courthouse, they have 2 American flags. They have the American flag, then they have the American flag with the little golden stuff around it. You know what that means? It means that court or that governmental building or apparatus like voting is owned by the corporate entity of the transnational law of Admiral. Little did you know that, right? The Dutch beat them to America. No, Amsterdam. Yep, New York. New Amsterdam. Right, and that's you go watch that movie, Gangs of New York. It starts out with this crazy guy screaming and yelling, and he's the old Dutch guy. So my ancestors were Dutch, little, and they were, they went up into New York State and cut all the trees down. They were one of the first robber barons, right? And then they made hotels, right? Hey, Santa Bob, your is very education to us. Good, I'm glad. Blog, a blog. It was a V there. Like, again, so I appreciate all this. This is stream of conscious, and Donnie, right, who's the game show host. I mean, he was put there to destroy this present, and this has been done before. The United States, as North America and South America have been destroyed over and over and over and over, and rebranded and remade into something else. We are heading to be Star Trek's Federation. Go watch the first episode of the new Next Generation, something at Firepoint, right? And that's when they meet Q, and Q throws him 8 zillion miles. He goes, don't go over this line. If you come into our neighborhood, you're not ready for that. He throws them a zillion light years past where they were, and they bump into the Borg, and then he throws them back, right? And then he puts them on trial and shows they have a nice 3-minute little vignette of what the world is going to be in about 4 years. Go watch it. Because good old Roddenberry, you know what his job before he started working for Desilu, which is Mr. Desi and Lucille Ball, that's Desilu. And at one point they made all the TV shows in America or on television, wherever they were, right? And that was the 60s, 70s period, late 50s, 60s, 70s. Anyway, so he came straight from naval intelligence and went to Hollywood and started to be a script doctor. And he wrote scripts for, Wagon Train and Gunsmoke. And he and Lucy were buds. And he said, listen, CBS is, producing a show called Lost in Space. I got this idea of Wagon Train in space. And she goes, well, that's our best seller. It's Wagon Train. So sure, give that a shot. So he does, and that's where Star Trek came from. And so he, part of his thing was, I am starting the story. I'm writing the Bible on Star Trek, the canon, as they say, and I'm going to keep doing it till I die. And basically, it was put there to put forth the description of where we're heading. So go watch that, right? The first episode of Next Generation, right? And Firepoint, right? And see that, you're in, they introduce everyone the first 10 minutes commercial, and then they meet Q because they go over the boundary line, and he throws them, and they bump into the Borg, and then they zip away. He clips them out and said, listen, you guys aren't ready for any of this. And then he shows them why they're not, and he shows them their history. And they're like, 300 years from that, 2020, 2030. And that's the year that episode shows. So go watch that. That's where we're heading. And that's because Donnie Trump is put there, right? He's just, he came from New York. I'm a New York boy. He was always on page 6, in the New York Post. He was, Roy Cohen. I got a picture of Roy Cohen I have to dig up and show you. He was like, whoa, this guy's satanically possessed. And Donnie, he's just a poor little kid. He doesn't know it, he's just right there. He's like been bullied his whole life, so he acts the way he does. He's got wires in his brain. He's actually dead. He died like, 15 years ago. That's why he smells so bad. And, he's just, ooh-wee, baby. And everyone else attached to him. I loved how Saturday Night Light, back in Donnie's first term, had his boys, right, where they do the news thing, and they had Eric and Donnie Jr. That's them. I worked on, I had a girlfriend who is an architect, and I met her at Cooper Union when I was in the alternative technology department. And they only had it for just about 6 years, and then they got rid of it because we did some pretty friggin' amazing. We made windmills that weren't the pinwheels. They were these round barrels. And the secret to it was you put 4 or 5 of those on every building, and it would make all the electricity you would ever need. And New York City used to have these water towers to, fill the whatchamacallit, the sprinklers, right? And if the water ran out in the hydrants. And there were places that if you had that electricity, you had it on the grid, and just up above Westchester, there were lakes, and if you made them bigger, you could have the water pumped up there when you had a lot of juice, when it was windy and sunny, and then when there was not that much wind or sun, you could just have hydropower. And we did that. We did a exhibit of that. And we also invented the digital electric meter, so you could put electric on the grid and take it off, right? And the utility entity, meaning Rothschild. Rothschild owns all of the energy and nuclear power, electric power, hydropower, you name whatever power there is. Rothschild owns it. Oil, coal, exactly. We do need more people speaking for the trees. No, why do you think I'll live amongst them, right? We had this amazing thing where we didn't have a lot of rain, we didn't have a lot of wind, but all the places where the corporations had bought and they were going to make their golf courses and everything, all the trees exploded out of the ground. They went up the hill, not snapping or falling over like you see in most hurricanes, exploding, root ball and all. Whee! Just like the fires in Canada and out west. I used to be a fireman, and I fought 2 upstate New York forest fires. Not big ones, not like the ones that got in California, but, in our zone. And we had this thing where we helped other fire departments. And so up around, I lived amongst the Finger Lakes, right? And so all the fire departments lived near the Finger Lakes. And so they didn't have, water everywhere. I mean, they had water everywhere in these lakes, but if the barn was burning down, you had a tanker truck that had a pump, and you had these swimming pools that we could just, bing, 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 there it is. It could hold 20,000 gallons. So you'd have the pumper truck there pumping water into the swimming pool, and then you had the pumper truck had another pump that it had like on its trailer hitch, and you'd put it there, and then you'd put hose up to the fire, even if it was 20 miles away, and we had enough hose to do that. So that's how we fought fires. So I fought a forest fire 3 times, and it was like, 200 acres, 1,000 acres. But if it kept going, it would have been nasty, right? It'd take out Ithaca or some other New York City. Anyway, and so that is the same kind of geology that this is. It's the Appalachian Mountain Range, right? Up into New York and up into Canada, right? And that's what the Finger Lakes are, right? It was like when the geology kind of scraped, it made these things that became lakes. Anyway, if a fire is burning and it goes up a Sawtooth Mountain Range, those are like chimneys, meaning the heat is so hot it draws the air up, across the valley, up, and feeds that fire like, woo! And in those kind of there are no roads, right? And so, can you hear that? Oh, maybe not. But they're tearing off the top of a mountain over there to build a golf course and houses. And that they can only do that now because when the hurricane came here, which didn't really, but the event, that's what I call it, that whole side of the mountain, the trees shot out of the ground, right? And then when FEMA came up here and spent $20 million to clear out the wood, that was supposed to be clearing out in roads and in public property, not private property owned by corporations that are held by LLCs that go all the way back to the Mideast, through Tony Two Toes and Bobby Bentnose. It's been this way forever, kids. And then unless you say we have to speak for the trees, we have to speak for us. We are on the chopping block. Now the Earth will take care of itself. It always has. Look, a big gigantic asteroid hit this place, killed everything in one day. That's when God really got pissed off at us. And those reptiles, I can't take it. They got this store. It's like, oh, better than God. Now that's the sin of omission. When you diss God and I don't care. You don't exist. Blah 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 blah. That's omission. And in the religions that I will not mention, pretty much all of them, if you have that, that's the one that God will never forgive you for, which is full of crap. God will forgive you for anything if you, in your heart, you go, yeah, oh, that really sucks. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. It makes me feel so bad. You start crying and, please help me out with this. Oh, God, I don't know what I'm doing. Please take the wheel, drive the car. And then God says, that's my boy or my girl, and takes care of it for you. And the Bible says if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So, can you please say happy birthday, Mr. Boyd? Of course I can. Happy boy! Happy boy, Mr. Boyd. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Boyd, B-O-Y-D. Because someone loves you. Who loves you? Who loves you, Mr. Boyd? I love you. Your Sensie Owl Bob loves you like a rock. Why y'all hating? That's a good question, Tyler. Why y'all hating? You know why? Anyone got a good idea about that? I can tell you in one word. Why do we hate? Because we're scared. Right? Because we turn the other way from love's co-creation. Instead of saying, God, I don't like using the word God because there's so many religions and there's only one God, and that word God is really a Sumerian, Babylon word, right? Through Egypt, over into Greek, then Roman, then the King James kind of picked it up. That's more a Vatican word, right? And God knows. Go study the Vatican. I was under the, like I said, Cardinal Cushing. I was going to be his rocket scientist for the Pope. I mean, he had a funny hat. He was 3 hats from the Pope. And he had a lot of juice because he was a cardinal of America. You were the only one that had bishop. He was a cardinal, He had that fishy-looking hat, right? The thing kind of went up. But he was a great guy. He had such empathy, such sweetness, but ooh, baby, did he have ambition, right? So he kind of put me in the ambition machine, and I just didn't fit. I was the rocket scientist, but I just kept asking questions like that one. Why are you all haters, right? Hating, right? Hating is a negative space thing, right? It don't do no good, right? It don't get you nowhere. Love is the only power there is. Hating it's like dead. It's like when I left the key on the car, and the starting cycle was humming, but the engine wasn't turning over because I didn't go that one last step. I just left the key on for about half an hour. Yeah, that's that's what hating is, right? You burn up your engine, right? It turns green. It's the Grinch. Well, the Grinch, you can feel sorry for the Grinch. He's not really hating. He was so disappointed because he believed. See, faith is what we need, not belief. Belief is an ideology. Faith is an energy that's inside us. That's when we are co-creating with love. Love is a great creator. I like the indigenous people motif. They call it the great creator, right? Watching from that was Ireland, bro. Much love. Okay, Mr. Cool. Oh, I like that, Mr. Cool. Anyway, let's see how we doing. Oh, we got plenty of juice. And so I'm just down to this little device. So I can't. I used to have my laptop and my tablet, so I could look other stuff up on the internet and show you stuff. There is a really good website called Middle Nation. You guys should go check out. And David Icke is another really good one. Um, let's see, Cliff Hyde. Cliff is off the hook. Then there is Dark Journalist. Um, Now, see, what's really great about all these, they have a great deal of amazing information, but they all have a belief structure, an ideology, which is okay. But you, as the observer, have to be the observer and take it in and not get hooked. Because what you have to be, why you are here, is to learn to be the decider. That you have, you see all this stuff. It's like a smorgasbord of information. That's the public social media, YouTube, all that stuff, right? Look at that. And the algorithm's trying to figure out to shovel shit in front of you, so you'll watch it more, so you'll see more commercials, all the above. Now, it'd be nice if some of those guys would shuffle some money into my bank account, but that'll come. I'm not worried about it because I can live like a king on $400. I mean, I can't go anywhere, but this is a beautiful place. And when it's time for me to step up again, I've stepped up many, 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 many times. And I've made fortunes and lost fortunes and had, I've had, one woman, on, where I signed the dotted line, and then I had 5 other wives. And those were women I had a super committed relationship with, but we didn't have kids. And that's really the only reason you should get married, is to have kids. You can have a committed relationship without getting married, right? And the only way, I used to be a shrinky boy, right? Basically, I would say psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist. What's that mean? It means I had more degrees than a thermometer. And a lot of people, you make me feel so nervous. You make me feel like, you. No, sorry, buddy. That's on your nickel, not mine. I'm a total chucklehead. If you think I make you nervous, come on. I'm here to tickle your fancy, not make you nervous. There have been so many people, like when I lived in New York, when I had a TV show on Manhattan Cable, where 7 million people used to watch me. It was called Potato Wolf. I wasn't the only guy there. I was one of the producers, right? But once there were Alan Wolf and 2 other guys and a girl, Mindy. What was Mindy's last name? Mindy. Ooh, sweet Mindy. So anyway, we were a community of artists. We were the downtown artist community. We were the people living every all the kind of crazy buildings from Union Square down to the Battery and into Hoboken and Brooklyn and Queens. That was us. We were called the downtown artists, and that's what Soho was. That was what Tribeca was. That's what Williamsburg, Brooklyn was. That's Hoboken, and wherever PS1. I always forget the name of that, but it was like the Venice of Queens. It was quite nice. Williamsburg too. So those were great days. From 66 until 88. New York was great for artists because it was. New York City went broke in 66 and didn't really come out of the hole until 91. So you could do anything you wanted. I mean, there were tons of abandoned, there was no lack of affordable housing. There were 1 million abandoned buildings. I would break into them. Our Outstanding Renewal Enterprise, ORE, started by Marissa, a patron saint of everything loving and compassionate of people on the street, and what's his name? Rolando Palizzi. Those 2 started that, and they had their own, what's his name? Stalinist obstructionist, Dave. Don't call me Dave. I'm David. David. You don't understand. I'm David. Okay, Dave. Ah! But we did a lot of fun stuff. So once we turned the corner of the Lower East Side, the rich came in, and just like Soho, just like Tribeca, came in, and you should go to Lower East Side now. That's where they got 60-story condos, each floor like half an acre for the uber rich. That's my 15th house. I got one in Paris, one in Rome, and one in the Lower East Side. And so the first, what was it called? Madonna moved in there. It was the 80s, probably 86, 87. And, I had a construction business, and, we took over, 50 buildings and put 500 abandoned families, meaning it had to be mommy and kids. No tweakers, no drug addicts, no, not. I mean, we would show them buildings that, hey, you crackheads, you want it? There's a movie with all the great black guys when they were young about the crack world in New York City. I forgot what it was called, but that was real. It was a big, frigging, beautiful apartment building, but right in the middle of if you didn't, if you went down there, it was a flip of the coin that you would come back alive. Why are you all haters? Let's see, it turns green. Let's see. Watching from Belfast, Ireland. I love Belfast. I went to school at Trinity in Dublin, right? And that's where I met the old crone. That's where Archie, he's an anthropologist who's Scottish and was like Earl or a Duke or something. He had a castle in Scotland, but he also had a castle in Northern Ireland, right there where real close to England, kind of whatever direction, like there's Belfast, and then you kind of go over here and there's this beautiful like country club, beautiful English forests and meadows with sheep on it, and you go take that road, I think it's a 25, and you keep going and that's where the ferry is, and it's got a railroad that goes there, and the road, whatever number it is. You know what I'm talking about, man? Do you believe in? Of course, where I live. This is the supernatural. That's Zombieland. That's why I picked this place. That's why this is the most gorgeous. It's a defunct, whatchamacallit, gated community, and it's so haunted. There's 30 lots, and there's only two houses. This neighbor, this guy, and he, it's an Airbnb, so no one lives here. Me, and then, some other chuckleheads on the other side of the logging road. And there's 3 other houses and 5 other houses. One burnt down by no explain. I mean, there's nobody there. Nothing happened. Power was turned off. Wasn't raining. Didn't get hit by lightning. Just incinerated. Another one where this tree, and then 10 trees fell over it after the first one and just crushed it. And these were 2 gigantic, big egocentric on top of the mountain. They like clear cut at the top of the mountain where you could see the whole lake and everything. One burnt to a crisp without any reason. The other tree, and without a storm or nothing, bang, 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 crushed it. So where I live in the holler, right? So I got it for nothing. And it's like living in an air conditioner and a heater. It's like a heat pump, In the summer, it's 10 degrees cooler, and in the winter, it's about 10 degrees warmer because it's always kind of wet. And when the banker showed it to me, got out there, and we kind of drove through the mud apocalypse, and I got out, and a zillion no-see-ums attacked me, right? So I bought it for nothing. I kind of cleared it out from the log road to the death road, and put a nice in-out driveway. And I have the flattest, because this is there's 4 mountains that make this thing. So there's 4 of these sawtooth mountain ranges, right? Like I said, if there's a forest fire and it goes up it's like a chimney, the fire goes shooting up. So a forest fire in a place like this, if you had a satellite and you were looking at the forest fire, the fire line would be like this, meaning following those mountains, right? Whereas in Canada and in the West, where it was the same kind of geological mountain, Sawtooth Mountain Range, it was a straight line. And those fires were really hot. If there was a forest line in a Sawtooth Mountain Range I fought 3 of them in New York State, super hot. But super hot like 400 degrees, right? And so if you have one of those things that you tell the temperature by the color of the flame, it would be an orangey color, right? Most fires are really smoky with a little bit of orange in there, right? Let's see, what are you guys saying here? Do you hear that? It's a tree falling. If you don't hear it, it didn't, no. It falls, but you don't hear it. Do you sometimes have thoughts that you believe was meant for someone else, but no, it's because I'll tell you what that is. If you aren't conscious intent, right, then anything can just sweep into your mind. I used to work for an entity called the BBI, Bureau of Behavioral Investigation, and they were part of a thing called the Tavistock Institute, right? And they were started in the 16th century, give or take, but they were more Jesuit, and the guys with the white coats with the big Titans, no. Toodleheads, no. Anyway, those guys. And those guys perfected propaganda and mind control, right? Back then, like, 300 AD, give or take, right? During the quest days, right? Anyway, so that's what it is. It's mind control, right? So, but if you have a conscious intent, everything I was taught by Mrs. Green and my grandma, like from 1 year old, have a conscious intent with everything you do. Don't go blah, 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 blah. No, because you'll do that for the rest of your life. You go, what's that about? Let me observe it. Let me think. Let me create a thesis. Then I'll take experiments and collect data. I was taught to do that like from 6 months old. And that's because I stuck a knife into an electric socket and I was going, this feels pretty good, because I was in a little onesie and I couldn't, I wasn't grounded. I was like on a wooden carpet, well, not wooden, a non-conductive carpet in a non-conductive onesie, and pretty much everything was covered up except my little hand, and I had the butter knife, and I stuck it. I had a choice between the big hole and the little hole, and it just fit in the little hole just right. And I was going, ooh yeah, baby, wee. But I wasn't getting electrocuted, right? It wasn't really. It was like saying hello. But my sister kind of ratted me out, and she, my mom, oh my God, and she already lost 2 kids, and everyone was going, I wonder why they died. And she, third one, it'd be a question, right? So she kind of went over and she put her hand on the radiator, the steam radiator made out of cast iron, and then she took her other hand and grabbed me, and she completed the circuit. And boy, did she get a shock. She got shot across the living room and smashed into her favorite coffee table and turned it into toothpicks and broke her arm. And that was it. I was shipped off to Grandma's. And then I was put in the crib with Mrs. Green, because my mom was barely feeding me this crib. She didn't put me on her tit. She gave me stuff called the formula. And, the cardboard box had more nutritional value than the formula. But Mrs. Green's tit was, woo. So we called her, me and Emily, the first word out of our mouths was mammo, because she had memories, right? So, let's see. But you had, let's see, what was it? Do you sometimes have thoughts that, I believe, meant for, no. Look, people have thoughts that are like that are basically what they call multiple personalities, sociopath, um, a few others. I never went by the beige book, I mean, because it always changed. It's like, I remember when I was studying this stuff and I was with people who had Tourette's, right? And so they called that a mental illness all by itself. No, it was a on the gradating scale of autism, right? And there's a lot of people. I mean, I think everyone on this planet is on the autistic scale, and it isn't because your mom took Tylenol. It has something to do with us not connecting with love's co-creation or being conscious intent. Thus, we're very susceptible because if you see a ghost, what is that? It's a paranormal. What is paranormal? It's a parallel normal. But that normal isn't where you are. It's parallel, right? So I got, really murdered when I was 7 by a nun. This orbit, she broke it. So this one is shaped more like a football rather than a basketball like the other one. So I see different frequencies with this eye. So I can see, look at that. And I don't say, ooh, look at that. And people, oh, he's crazy. No, I just kind of measure it, right? Have a thesis, do experiments. Why do you think this eye does that? I mean, it's been doing that since the nun whacked me. I used to clip it. I used to shave it. But, I mean, my mother did. I never did. I couldn't care less what I look like, really. I never knew I was kind of handsome. Even today, women like, ooh, you're kind of cute. Then they talk to me, go, wow, you actually listen to me. Ooh, wow, you rub my feet. Oh, yeah, my feet. Oh, God, yes. Ah! Like Sari Met Halley, that's me, but I just do it with the feet. If I get really involved, I go a little higher, right? And then, you're the best lesbian I've ever had, Very handsome, thank you. Even with my message. Come on, guys, put it in capital. I can barely read this shit. View message. Show. Even with my nun eye, I like that. Sexy, yep. So I never knew I was sexy, right? So I always viewed all humans as humans. Not black humans, not white humans, not girl humans, not boy humans, none of the above, just humans, right? And I didn't even go, there were humans who were my cadre, people I identified with, I loved, I cared, we hung out, we identified, and then everybody else. And I didn't really care. If some bully, I was such a small kid. Like when I was 7, my dad tripped over me, and he like to the point where he fell on the floor. He's like down on the floor with me, and he goes, "Who are you? You're not one of us. I've never seen you before." Now most kids at 7, if your father said that to you, you would go, "Huh?" But no, I had just come back to this, ferret weasel family, where I spent most of those 7 years with Mrs. Green and Grandma and the rest of Harlem. That was amazing. We were right in the zenith of the Harlem Renaissance. People think the 19s were the Renaissance. No, that's when it was getting started. But, the early 50s, ooh, baby, it was amazing. Let's see what these, show. Cartwheel, please. You're lucky I can walk up here. Show us your. Now, be nice. Don't be so crude. I mean, everyone's got one, so, I never was anal retentive. I didn't use 7 rolls of toilet paper to clean my asshole up, to then clog the thing, and then all the shit backs up in the house, I've known a few people, but one special one, the most amazing one, the one known as Jimmy. Do you folks know Jimmy? Jimmy, one of his many personalities. And see, it's a very interesting thing. Way back when I stumbled onto David Bowie. I've told this story. Again, this is one of those stories I've told 1,000 times. It's on the show way back then, but I'll do the shortcut. So back in the day when I built, and I didn't build these discos. I was the ME, master electrician. I had a license, right? And I came from a pedigree, because in New York City, most people had a license. They only got it because they were born into it. And I was born into it because at age 9, I kept blowing stuff up in my parents' New York City apartment. And it just, I can't take this boy. My mom walked me down 3rd Avenue, about a block, and there was, Stahl Electric. I went in there, and there was Mike Stahl. And he was probably in his 50s then, give or take. And my mother goes, you do something with this boy, I can't take it. And he looked at me, and he looked at my mom, and he says, here, write down your address, your phone number, and you can go. I'll bring him. I'll bring him back. And she told him where I know that place. Yeah, we wired that, right? So Mike, Stahl Electric was Grandpa Stahl, that was Mike Sr., and Mike. And Mike didn't want to be Junior. So Grandpa, when Mike became an electrician at like 5, and, basically, he said, I never want to be called Junior. So Grandpa said, sure, you're Mike, I'm Grandpa. So anyway, I go in there, and there's a big pile of stuff in Mike's back shop. Not his front shop, where his office, where he was like an architect. He had architect table and tables everywhere, and lights, and beautiful. Because he was building buildings like the United Nations and the Seagram's building, buildings like that, right? And Grandpa had done buildings like the Warwick building and the Empire State Building and the Chrysler building and a zillion other buildings. And he was Nikola Tesla's, Grandpa was Nikola Tesla's bench electrician. Nikola Tesla would make a drawing, give it to Grandpa, and Grandpa would make the device. So those two guys were my electric mentors, right? So when my mom brought me into that office, and I saw Mike look at me, he looked at me, and there was this beam of love at me, right? And so he looked at my mom and said, don't worry about it, I'll take care of him. Just, write your name, your address, your phone number, and I'll bring him, right? I'll deliver him. What time do you want him there? 6 o'clock? No problem. And so he sits me down. We start talking. He goes, so why do you take things? I said, well, I love electricity. And I knew about the EMF because my Uncle Steve told me, who was an electrical engineer. So his wife was my mom's one of her best buds in the nursing school, right? So anyway, so Uncle Steve gave me all his Ullmans, and these were these technical journals. I learned how to read, between Stuart Little and the Ullman technical journals. That's how I learned to read. Anyway, and then I was 9, and so I was still kind of busted up from, the nun killing me when I was 7. And then I went off to Garden City, where the Marinols put me back together, right? And that is my measure of the medical model. If they can't reach what that place was, because it was a sanctuary. It wasn't like a place to, a nunnery or a place to be a priest. No, this was a sanctuary. And so they put me together because the Nazi nun crushed my larynx, broke the organ in my eye, broke the little stirrup in my ear, broke my jaw. So that's why I kind of speak kind of strangely, because the air doesn't move across my larynx the way it does for everybody else. I had to learn how to breathe. And once I got out of the medical care, and I was still me. I wasn't like traumatized, but I had a really serious stutter. So they had to like jigger me. Dude, I love you in Harry Potter. Yes. Yeah, I play many parts in Harry Potter. Dumbledore, the guy who turns into a werewolf, Harry's best friend. How old is this dude? Come on, kids, guess. I'll give you a hint. I'm older than 65 by a lot, or a good measure, right? So the guy who keeps writing this stuff held in I'm not going to show him live on the screen. I'm going to look at him because this device I have to basically put the show up. It renders into it on the channel, then I have to edit it. It won't let me just put it up whoop-de-doo. And that's why those 3 shows that you can now see now were not up there for the last 5 days because I wasn't at a place. I didn't walk the mile and a half to talk to you guys. So the guy who keeps putting the view message, can I view it? And let's see. I'm going to hit this and say, but if I hide it, how can I show it? So no, I'm just going to do that and see what it does. Held for view. Okay, I can look at it. Okay, so, okay. Learn something new every day. Hello, J. Miles, right? And everyone else having a birthday today. Happy birthday to you. And everyone watching this show is having a birthday today because today is the first day of your life, right? I wake up every morning dead because I've died 7 times. I got 2 more left, but I'm here to do something, and that's why I keep doing the show, because it seems to do something for you guys. And so, say, where are you? Me, I'm in this very strange little neck of the woods that I'm, let's see, 6 miles to North Carolina. I'm 12 miles to Virginia. I am 40 miles up to, Kentucky, and about 50 or 60 miles maybe to West Virginia. So this is squirrely. I'm about, 15 miles from Mount Mitchell, about 70 miles away the road goes to Asheville, way up that big hill. And so that's where I am. So I am in the the corrugated sawtooth mountain range of accordion between the Appalachian and the Blue Ridge, right? It's really, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Came and visited. Yeah, say hello. Say hello. Say hello. Say hello. Yes. Say hello. Goodbye. So that's what everything does. They all come up to me. All the butterflies and whatever that was, and even the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums, they come up to me and they don't. I mean, if they can't help themselves, they'll let's see. Those are good luck. Yep. Love coming towards your light. Yes. Those things are nocturnal, right? And I am. I'm an owl. Sensie Owl Bob. And those 3 names were given to me. I didn't I'm going to call myself this. No. Mm-mm. My sensei says you're a sensei, right? So that's where I got that. Where are you in Harry Potter? Like I said, Dumbledore, the guy who turns into the werewolf, and Dobby. There's a part of me that's Dobby. Joshua Lloyd. Thanks for the respect, Joshua. Let's see. No, it's said lit. Okay. Said hi. Hi. Gandalf the Grey. Yeah, that's me. Did you ever see Gandalf's always smoking his pipe? I mean, that was back in that day. I don't. I will smoke the pipe when it's a ceremony, but not every day. Can you tell us a story about how you died? Well, okay, the nun one. She picked me up. I was a little peanut of a guy. It was like in the 50s. When I was 6, I went with my dad to the Nevada test range, and I watched an above-ground nuclear test, and that changed my whole worldview, right? And I was standing around guys in white coats and $1,000 suits, and Army generals, and my dad, right? And he didn't quite have $1,000 suit, but he had a nice suit. My mom made it. Anyway, but he had this lead, shower curtain over me, and I was wearing welding goggles, and our backs, the explosion was behind us, and we were looking at the blockhouse. And we're here, and it's like 3 in the morning, maybe 3:30. It's darker than dark. The sky is clearer than clear. The sky, I've never seen stars like that. There were just 2 lights. Nothing was like, no light pollution. And then they said, 10 minutes to detonation. And then, 1 minute to detonation. 50 seconds to detonation. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Detonation. Still darker than dark. And these 2 MPs have their hands on my shoulder, right? And I got the lead thing on me, so I'm almost like flat on my face. And then this flash of light. I'm wearing, welding goggles. Flash of light so bright, I see everything. And I'm not facing the flash. The flash is behind me. So I'm facing this concrete wall of the blockhouse. And the light is so bright, it illuminates the guys in the blockhouse who are behind, windows that are made out of bulletproof stuff that is darker than dark, and they're wearing, and it lights them up. I can see everyone on the inside of the blockhouse in that little strip of a window, and I see our shadows being etched on the concrete wall of that first flash, and then the explosion and the wind. And the guys had their hands on my shoulder, and if they didn't, I would have blown away, right? Like a leaf, right? So, and the wind passed, and my father says, turn them around. And they turn me around, and they kind of take the lead thing off my head, and my dad said, put your hand up and look at the mushroom. And I did, and I could see the bones in my hand. And then when I looked at the mushroom, there were colors in there that just don't exist. And inside those colors, there were all kinds of animals and creatures, and they were all swirling around in there. And that was the paranormal. And nuclear weapons are more a paranormal device than they are Manhattan Project. And Manhattan Project wasn't just about nuclear weapon. It was about why they call it Manhattan Project? Because that's where Nikola Tesla lived. He lived in the New Yorker Hotel. And Donnie Trump's uncle, Uncle John, was the first guy through the door after they heard Nikola Tesla fall on the floor dead. They went in there and they looked at all of his stuff, and Donnie Trump's uncle took all the stuff out that he wanted, and basically they left, the FBI and Donnie's uncle left. And that's when the Stalin's boys, there was a big line down the hallway. Stalin boys, then English boys, then the French and whoever else, right? Chinese. Because the atomic bomb was a Tonka toy compared to the other stuff. Time travel, 0-point energy, transmission of energy, unlimited energy anywhere on the face of the earth. They don't need to shoot me with a bullet. They don't need to shoot me with a Hellfire missile. They don't need to shoot me with anything, just like that. and I'd be, you know, protons, right? Yeah, yeah. So Grandpa Solo told me every story about Nikola Tesla because he was like, you know, the prodigy son of Nikola Tesla who didn't have any kids. So Grandpa Stoll did all that. So Edison is flying around with DC while he's just lighting up Pearl Street. You know, that's going from the Battery to right to Wall Street. So I mean, what Edison was good at is exactly what Neon Husk is, right? And that's my name for Tesla boy, Mr. X, you know, because that clown doesn't invent anything. He steals everything. And, you know, Peter Tilk is, you know, the emperor, you know, he's, you know, so Neon Husk is, and why Neon Husk? Because neon light invented before the incandescent light was invented, Tesla invented the neon light. Just like he invented X-ray, the radio, you name it, he did it. Radar, at the indoor circuit. He had artificial intelligence in the 1870s, 80s. He had a robot boat that he ran. He showed the guys from the War Department from D.C. That he put this boat out there and it putted around all by itself. Didn't need wind, didn't need steam, didn't need anything. It just moved around, and it blew up stuff in the sailboat lake that's in Central Park. And he says it has it's remote controlled and it has its own intelligence. If we put these things on, you know, out in the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, guarding our coast, we'll never have to have a war. No one can touch us. No one can, and we'll put a bunch across the land. We can have the same thing rolling on wheels, and no one will be able to attack us. We don't have to spend any money on war. And Mr. Rockefeller said, "Well, that's nice, Nick, but sorry, no, we have plans for war. Don't get fooled by his beauty." Yes. Where are you guys going with that? Nanai, how are you today? So I'm, as I say every day is a great day, you know, because I'm alive and I'm here to serve love's co-creation by being consciously intent. Yeah, my back hurts, and I had a miracle with my hip, meaning it's not screaming in pain. Yeah, it's stiff because I've been sitting here, almost 2 hours and 27 minutes. So I got to get up here. Let's see. Let's see how we can do this. Boop, ba doop, boop, boo. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to put the little top on it so it doesn't spill. And I'm going to give myself a little room. See, I couldn't do this. I didn't have this range of motion. I couldn't do this at all. I'd be screaming right now. Yeah, it's stiff. It doesn't quite hurt. It's on the edge of hurting. But that's because I've been sitting there talking to you guys for the last 2.5 hours. Oh, boy. Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to stay standing for a while. So what other questions you guys got? You got anything else you want? Don't Be Fooled. Yes. That song by The Who, right? Don't Be Fooled Again. And that's where we're at. Donnie Chump. He's not the problem. He's the symptom. And we had him twice. I mean, why did all those fools vote for him? We knew what he was, and Donnie Trump won. And then we got Donnie. Donnie, this ain't 2.0, it's 3.0 because he was sucking up all the oxygen so we wouldn't watch what Biden was doing. Biden has dug more oil than Donnie ever thought he could, right? Biden was drill, baby, drill. Biden basically, like Donnie said, well, if I was president, the Ukrainian war and the thing in the Gaza Strip would never have happened. And that's probably right. And that's why he wasn't president, because good old war man, warmonger, used car salesman, JoJo, and this, he wrote more executive orders. That auto pen, right? I mean, people should have known better. There were 10 people running for president, and they pulled the used car salesman out of his basement, out of the crypt, and they put him on stage. And they didn't put them all 10 together because, JoJo would have never been able to handle that. So he got 3 people to talk to, right? And he got none of the, he didn't talk to, Bernie. Bernie wasn't there. He didn't talk to, what's his name? Dubacek or whatever that guy's name is, or anybody who had, Tassie Gabbard before she became a Marvel villain. Doesn't Tassie Gabbard look like especially when she's in her whole white suit? She looks like a stormtrooper out of Star Wars without the helmet on. So let's see. Don't get fooled. Santa has nothing on this man. Yep. And Daily. None eyes sees all. Yes, the none eyes sees all. Use the power of the none eye. I do all the time. When I worked in the corporate world, I was a consultant, and what do? I said, I'm a consultant. What? I'm a, psychosocial, cultural, forensic anthropologist. Why do I have all those things? Why those names, right? Because I was a research fellow. Just like the movie Goodfellas, that's the kind of research fellow I was. When I was at Johns Hopkins, that's what, Dr. What was his name? He was a guy who wrote a great book called Hope and Tragedy. He was part of the CFR. Dr. What's his name? Anyway, that book, go look that up. Hope and Tragedy, right? Another book that's really a great book was one of H.G. Wells' last books was called The Short Book of History, right? It was like 8,000 pages long. And when he wrote that book, and he published it, I think, in 1936 or something like that, after World War, before World War II, it was the most, he made a fortune on it. That was, everyone else, he had publishers and stuff, but he did this one himself. And that book was the most well-read book in the 20th century, more than the Bible, more than any other book. Have you ever freaking heard of it? No. About 1956, it kind of took it all away, just like Wilhelm Reich's works, right? I was part of this esoteric community in New York City. It was called, the New Age, and I was, the scientist version of the New Age instead of the hokey, I learned medicine. I was sent off to osteopath school in Idaho or wherever that was in the city of Davenport, wherever state Davenport's in. And that was a great school. That was the last of the that, and I learned a lot about trigger points, and then I studied. I went off to a ashram, and I helped put it together, a Shinto ashram in Putney, Vermont. And now Putney, Vermont is like one of those centers of alternative medicine. And that was me and Sensei, right? And he stayed, I was the first guy there. Before Sensei even showed up, my boss at the VA sent me up there. He sent me to all these places because he goes, I was just a bedpan guy. When my draft board caught up to me in 72 or 1, and I didn't break the law. I didn't burn my draft card, didn't do any of that crap. I just was, rode the rails with the hobos. They couldn't quite find. And then I'd find a nice little town, and I'd be an electrician or this or that, and then I'd fit right in. And then kind of when I would become obvious, usually the sheriff. One of the first thing I would do is, do you have an electric supply place, right? Hardware store? No, electric supply. Oh yeah, where Bob the electrician goes to? Oh yeah, over there. So I would go over there, and there'd always be a popcorn machine and an unlimited coffee supply and a counter it was like belling up to the bar. And I would go in there and I'd get myself a nice little bag of popcorn, and I would get my coffee, and I would sit there, and they would say, if it was crowded, I'd be patient as the day is long because I didn't really need anything. And then when the crowd would shuffle out, and what I'd be was with the nun eye, I'd be observing everyone and saying, who should I work for? Which one of these guys really needs me? Anyway, I wouldn't say anything. And I would always kind of, there'd be a glass wall there, and the owner would kind of be on the other side, and he's like making sure he's making money. And I'm eating popcorn and not getting anything, right? And so he wouldn't come out, but I could see him looking at me, looking at him, looking at everybody else. And so he was, and that's why he's the boss. So anyway, it would, and so they would go, after the crowd left, and it's like 10 in the morning, and the guy at the counter said, well, buddy, you've been here all morning. You need anything? You're the most patient electrician I ever said. Well, that's the best electrician, the patient one. And I tell him a story of why that's good. And he goes, yeah, that makes sense. That's why these clowns don't know they're just rushing so much. And the guy was the head counter guy, been there for like 20 years. So he was a good electrician. He realized he could make more money and not work that hard if he was just a counter guy. So he was almost kind of like me. So we'd had a nice little conversation, and then somebody'd walk in, and one other kid would be there, and he had no idea what it was, so that guy would have to go. And then, the crowd would thin out again, and I'd see that guy. There we go. I'm back. Anyway, so that was rude. So anyway, that's how I just traveled all over, and I would ride the rails. White House warns of mass federal layoffs. Yeah, of course. Ted told you guys, Donnie is a game show host. He is put there to destroy America. First, he let Neon Husk, basically take over douche and go, pull out every, the IRS's servers, every place with any kind of valuable statistical information. Neon took. He scraped it off, and he took it up to his little monster AI facility in Tennessee, right? And he is causing more air pollution than all of LA put together. And he's doing it right in that vacuum cleaner factory, smack in the middle of where all the poor people live. And so, sorry. You thought you were dead then, right? Not so much, Memphis, Tennessee. Go look what he's doing there. And so they're building gigantic AI facilities. All the ones that they're going to build in the United States, like that one there, is going to use more electricity than 4 million houses. You know what kind of carbon footprint that is? Ooh, baby. And you know what that's going to, AI was around when I was a kid. Because my dad, he worked for General Mr. Groves, General Groves, and good old what's his name, the guy who's LBJ's smartest guy I know, Mr. War himself. My dad worked for those guys. He helped incinerate Europe and then did a great job on Japan, and came back between the two. He got a furlough a little bit to work at Boeing to to get the B-29 working in good order so it could incinerate Asia. An airplane flew at almost 50,000 feet, had a radar bomb so it could bomb shit through the clouds. The Norden bombsight, it had to be a sunny day. You had to be able to see your target. The B-29, it had guns all over it. Didn't need them. It was at 50,000 feet. Nobody had a fighter that could get up at it. But if they did, they had 2 on top, 2 on the bottom, 2 in front, and 4 in the back. Cannons in the back. And they were all run by one guy who had radar of everything. It was like, a video game, right? Can I come visit? Like swinging in the trees, my nun-eye brother. Well, and Daly, I'll tell you what. Anyone who wants to come visit, you got to do 2 things. First, you got to get a hold of me, and I didn't mention this, and I should be mentioning this more. My email is the dudeawake42@gmail. Dudeawake42@gmail. Dudeawake42@gmail, right? So, if you send me an email with your phone number, especially if you live in America, and that's pretty much, if you want to come and visit me, you're going to need to be in America, and you got to have a car. You got to drive here because if you're going to come visit me, right? You're going to drive here, and I'm going to meet you like in Johnson City, right? Or any other little town around that, right? Within a 40-mile radius of me, right? Because I live out in the middle. I don't even have a zip code. When the people, what's your zip code? I said, I don't have one. They go, what? That's why I picked this place. When the ambulance guy wanted to come and get me, I tried to explain how to get. He's I can't write it down. I said, record it. I said, I don't know. I know it's not in my magic box. I can't do it. I said, well, good luck. We can't find it. So I kind of gave it to. I said, just come on this road, and then try and call me again if you make it. And he didn't. He got lost. He was like on the other side of the freaking county. So that's, again, this place is paranormal. It kind of protects me. But if you know how to have a lens that can take up for that, I mean, like I said, you could hit me with a particle beam, no problem. And that, I'm out of here in 1 of 3 ways. Jesus comes and says, okay, buddy, we got a project for you, right? Number 2, Mr. Globaloney comes. Hey, Jesus gave us his pass. You can come work for us. Because I did that. And I've learned not to do the things that kill you working for Mr. Globaloney, right? But it's fun. It's interesting. And I can do good, not bad, right? That's why they had me there for those 15 years, to do good and have a lot of fun. Every titty bar, every fun thing I was doing with those guys, I would keep saying to Jesus, so Jesus, is this a sin? He goes, oh, of course not. If it's any kind of sin, it's the sin of commission. You're having a great time. Do you feel guilty about this? I said, well, not really. He goes, see, that's all you got to do. Are you treating anybody bad? No. Are you taking advantage of everybody? No. Are you leading anybody astray? No. Are you fucking yourself up? Maybe. Well, he said, see, that ain't a sin. I said, what is it, Jesus? He goes, well, You know, when you're doing this fun stuff, there's always a cost to be paid. And he's right. You know, I don't have any joints left. Unbelievable arthritis, unbelievable neuropathy, unbelievable diabetes, unbelievable. I'm just Mr. Unbelievable because I wake up alive every morning. I should be dead, but I'm not. And I say, thank you, Jesus. He goes, no problem. I said, what's on the schedule today? Well, whatever shows up, you know. And so it's been a really sunny summer. See how I have a line here? My hat is it's like protected that top there, and this is my suntan. But anyway, I digress. So if you want to come and visit, get a hold of me on. And if you're in Europe, you can come here and on a vacation visa, and basically preferably, if you're a diplomat or a rich guy from Europe, come visit me. Then you can do whatever you want. Come and get me in a one of those beautiful 4-wheel drive RVs, and we can go all over America, and we can make beautiful movies and YouTubes and you name it, right? So anybody wants to, and that's it. You want to come visit me, get me at the dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? And if you're in America, get dude awake 42 at Gmail. You send me your phone number, I call you back, and there you go. We be talking. And there are a lot of people who do that, right? And there are a lot of people. I have the old cadre did that, right? So I had about 300 of the old cadre, and there's still some, like Jamie is part of the old cadre. And in the last 3, 5 years, a lot of people call who are like on the edge, gonna kill themselves, blah blah blah, and they wanted, and you're my last chance. And I would talk, they call me up, we talk on the phone, and that's my 100. That's my 100 club, not 300 club, my 100 club. And they still talk to me, right? So if I ever want to have an interesting conversation, I give them a buzz. And once in a while, they're part of the show, right? And they have been. And then they're the what do you call 'em? Oh, academics. I'm an academic. I didn't know I got a bachelor's degree. Well, I got I got a PhD in anthropology, a PhD in psychology, a PhD in sociology, a PhD in electrical engineering, PhD in a few other things. And how did I? And you say, how did you get all those degrees? And why did you say you had a bachelor's degree or a master's degree? Why are they all PhDs? Because, kids, I didn't need a bachelor's degree. I didn't need a master. I do have an MSW. I do have one of those. And those other degrees, because I was working for entities like John Hopkins, and they wanted me to go run it to, not quite run a program, but like help create the modality, right? Help put together the process of documentation, all of the above, right? I would do that. Well, they're going to send me off as just plain old, you know, Sensie Owl Bob. Those clowns are all in universities. They all got a stick up their ass, and they all, what is your authority? What kind of degree do you have? Oh, I have bachelor's. That's not worth it. Master, no, PhD. PhD from Stanford. PhD from, you know, this place, that, Harvard, you name it. I was PhD because I was working for those guys. The guy just pulled out his drawer, take 3, fill it out, have his secretary type in the shit, sign it, give it to me. He goes, you got a PhD now. And I would take it with me, had it rolled up. Here it is. Here's there. See, look at it. Call that guy, the guy head of that department. Go ahead, call him. So, like I tell people, I have more degrees than a thermometer, right? And I goes, that makes me feel bad when you say that. You're making me nervous. Ah, boo-hoo, boo, boo. Give me a break. Anyway, come like swinging it. Yeah, come swinging the trees. Got a lot. I got swings. I got hammocks. the mile and a half from here is where my deep green is, and I have this part of it's like the Shire, right? And I have all these campsites because I had my mystery school here. This is one of the places at the school that the anal retentive guy who called up. He has Inga's and George's art school. I sold it to him, right? And Inga and we never called it the art school. George did because that was his ego. Inga and I always called it the Hill because that's what it was. It was a paranormal doorway. And Inga knew it. She and I could see it. We'd set out. My dog found all the places that the Cherokee had their sacred sites in this 10-acre. This whole thing was not a zillion, but a lot of sacred sites, altars, right? And so she found them. I made a path around them. And man, when I died, one thing that kept me alive, I would just walk up that hill and walk around that thing. And I had these, those kind of lawn chairs that fit in a bag that you can buy at Walmart's for $7 when I want to get rid of them. I had one or two of those everywhere, and a little fire pit. One of them was a kitchen, so I had it as a kitchen. And I brought Christmas lights through the whole place so you could walk up there on that thing without killing yourself at night. And I had campsites all along there so people could camp out. I had my mystery school there. And I had a lot of people come to that because, I had the big school, so I had rooms, big fireplaces. So when it got cold, they could make a big fire and roll out their bedding in the basement and sleep there without freezing to death. But around all those campsites up there had electricity. You could plug electric. I had a lot of electric blankets, so people who would stay the winter. It wasn't like a ridiculous thing, or if the electricity didn't go out. Because up there, see, electricity don't go out here that much because everything's in the ground. That's why I bought this place. And the line coming in here comes right off the main. So they can't let that main go down. Otherwise, 100,000 people don't have electricity. So that's why this place really, I don't have a big bad storm, boom, lightning crash, boom, bam, trees. I won't have electricity for maybe 2-3 hours. But they got to get that main line up. And everything from the main line to me is underground. So that's why and the water, same thing. Everything is underground. And I put a septic tank in. I put unbelievable amount of, because it used to be the mud apocalypse. It was the bog down at the bottom. It's still damp, but I have French drains everywhere. I have about 6 inches of stone. And I grew a carpet of golf course lawn on top of stone. Took about 5 years to get it started, but it did it. And around me, I have these tulip poplars that are like 200 feet above me, and they're like the safety net. Lightning can't hit me. It's burnt the crisp out of the top of all those trees, but it hasn't hurt my open space. And so I have 2-point-something acres. And I'm right where all of the mountains come together, that Sawtooth Range. And so I cleared everything out, all those big oaks, the maples, everything. And watch Mojo, top 10, whatever. So anyway, we're going for a long one. How many hours have I been talking here now? 10 hours? No, I haven't been talking 10 hours. If I had my glasses, I could see this. Not 12 hours either. Oh, you know what? I don't know what it says. Who knows? Don't matter, right? Maybe 118 minutes, maybe that. Who knows? But I have no idea. Jizz, can I come visit? Yeah, like I said, P.O. Box. Not P.O. Box. The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, right? Get a hold of me at Gmail, right? And if you have Gmail, I'll send you a lot of my writings, my novels, my short stories, my essays, my theses. I've had, since 2014, was that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's 10 years, 25, 11 years. I have 11 years of writing up here. And I got no TV, no nothing, no platforms, nothing, right? So, anyway. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, you guys are still writing from there. Are you gay? No, no. But I am just me, right? So I worked in a theater for 20 years. I worked in films for 20 years. I worked in every other kind of everything for 20 years. And I've had every kind of gender bender, Lower East Side, West Village. I worked for Herbert Berghoff, Uta Hagen, the Living Theater, you know. So, no, I grew up in Harlem where every kind of everything was. No, we are all just human beings. So gay people don't, they're loads of fun, you know. They're slap, But I've never, like I said, sex ain't a big deal to me. It's not, I don't think about it. It's, the only thing that I love people, especially one at a time. And what happens to me, and this is from kindergarten, when I was in Mrs. Girling's, before the nun murdered me, um, Lisa Cohen is when I got to like Jewish girls. Lisa Cohen, there weren't too many Jewish girls, and Christine Cho, right? Chinese, Jewish girl. Rest of everyone else was white, Italian, and Irish, right? Italian Irish. That's like an American, right? And Miss Girling was amazing. And so we were the three odd people out. Again, the three of us, and I just come to live with my folks, or I was visiting. They were like dipping me. I've been in Harlem with everybody under the sun, and Emily, who I shared my black sister from another mother. I shared the crib and the breasts with for well, the breasts and crib we shared for 2.5 years, and then we got our own little, but we still had the same room, right? And because we were tight, right? And she's now real top notch. She made a lot of money in corporate lawyering. One time I was doing a corporate lawyer gig in Miami, and she showed up as the people at the other side of the table. I was like, we were like that. I hadn't seen her like 30 years, easy. Last time I saw her was when her mom died. Anyway, it was so great because everyone freaked out, and she and I went off with a judge and figured out the outcome of the disagreement. And the judge said, okay, the two sides came together, negotiated, and I thought this was going to take forever, but these two people, they're brilliant, they're great, they're the best legal minds I've ever seen. And it's because Em and me, we just kind of, okay, let's figure it out. And the corporate people were like, I'm in charge. And the judge said, no, sorry, it's already done. Anyone done sign this document is going to lose every nickel you have. B, go to jail. Because both through discovery showed how you guys have, the only way you're getting out of this, and you're all going to make $200 million. I don't know why you wouldn't sign it for that. you know, otherwise this is going to court and everything's coming out in discovery and you guys are going to jail, both sides. There's nobody here that ain't going to jail except these two brilliant lawyers. And then Emily kind of laughed and said, Your Honor, oh yeah, right. Well, this guy, he is a what did you say you were? Psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist Sensie Owl Bob. Yeah, that guy. And I don't think about gender. I just love everybody. And sex ain't a big deal to me, right? I don't think about it unless some woman comes by and says, oh, you're cute. And we start talking and I get to like them. And they start like doing this to my ear and like kissing me on the neck and then rubbing me in places and saying, you could touch me there if you wanted to. I don't do anything without permission. And I don't ask. They have to ask first. You can do that if you want. Go ahead. But here, I said, well, before that, let me just show you something. Here, sit in this chair, put your feet across my legs. Here, what do you think? Let me take these shoes off. Let me put my hand up there and take those stockings off. Ooh, wasn't that nice? Now, What do you think it is? What did you do? I want there's a point on your foot that kind of is that one of those erogenous sounds. Oh my God, I've never felt that in my life. So, see, I don't really think about sex. It starts with the feet, then the knees, thighs, hips. Then we, whatever they want, but they have to ask first. So, no, gay? I don't think so. And that's almost a stupid question. Just looking at me, you go, well, this guy, no, he's just this guy. He's the dude. Why do you think my email, one of my students, I have no, I am bureaucratically challenged and I'm also digitally challenged, right? So for all these years, and back in 1984, I dated one of my 5 wives, Christine Barton, the most smartest human on Earth, probably still, but she's not on Earth now. She's probably in Alpha Centauri. Basically, we were we were like mind melded from the first time I met her. It's just, and basically, we had a great time the first night and everything, and then that was it. I had all these abandoned buildings, and she thought they were kind of fun. I showed them to her, and she goes, but here, let me show you my apartment. It was really nice. Right on Central Park West, doorman, the whole gig. Nice bathroom, big bathtub, nice shower you could walk into. And, she had all the money you could, and she had access to anything and everything. So, and she would take me along to all these great conventions of really smart people. The only smart person there was Christine. You guys ever seen a Pixar movie and their little logo is that lamp that kind of moves around, right? That was Christine Barton's PhD thesis when she was 16 at Stanford. And she did that. They gave her 2 PhDs, electrical engineering and computer sciences, right? And she was made the first woman on the board of SIGGRAPH. Not SIGGRAPH. She made SIGGRAPH. She and, what's her name? Louise Etra. They made SIGGRAPH. But Christine was the first board member of the IEEE, right? So those are the women in my life, people like that. And they come to me, they like, oh, you're kind of cute. I met Christine. I knew all these guys who wanted to be, Mr. Microsoft. I mean, it was like the 80s. Microsoft was just it. But they were all like, they didn't know squat. They were like Neon Husk, And Neon doesn't even have a college degree. These guys at least went to Stanford. And I knew 2 of them from Grandpa Xerox. Grandpa Xerox was one of my mentors, right? I met him in New York. And through Captain Louis. Louis was the grandson of Grandpa Sony, right? And so Grandpa Sony during World War II was their version of Nikola Tesla. And Grandpa Sony's son was like Mike Stoll. And he made Sony the he turned things into products. Sony was Japan's version of Steve Jobs before Steve Jobs, right? That's where Steve Jobs got the idea. And so Grandpa Louis was that guy's brother, youngest brother, right? So he kind of got born in the dust of World War II. World War II was over, and as his brother and his father were building the empire, this guy was just having a good old time playing with stuff like me, right? So that was Grandpa Louis, and they sent him to New York with all the new gizmos, and he had this loft down in Tribeca. And he knew me, and he knew other guys like me that were fooling around with stuff. And so he would have these like technology salons. He came to one of my salons uptown, and he said, I want you to do that with me. Well, he didn't sound like a Southern boy, but he sounded like a Japanese guy. Every third world was Japanese. But he was great. He was Grandpa Louis. So He was right on Varick Street, right where Chambers and Varick, and there's a triangle there. That's Tribeca, right? And that triangle starts right there at Chambers Street, and one side of that triangle is Varick, and then the other side is Hudson, right? And so there's Chambers Street, and then there's, I think it's Duane or Reed. I think it's Reed. Next one is Duane, and that's where Duane Reed pharmacies came from. And so that Varick goes all the way up to Canal and keeps going, and just around Father Fagan Square, just around Spring Street, that's where Varick turns into 6th Avenue, right? And the other one, Hudson, just keeps going. It turns into 8th Avenue, further up, right? And so Captain Louis was right on that triangle, and on where I guess it was Duane Street, where Duane cut across those, Varick and Hudson was Duane Park, and that's where I lived, because I worked for, there was what was known as Mohawk Electric, and that was Tesla's laboratory. And Grandpa Stoll owned that. So he owned a couple of buildings on Duane Street and Thomas Street, and the building that became the big whoop-de-doo Darth Vader AT&T, it basically was the and the guys who listen in on you. That place was woo. Anyway, but that property was a place where Tesla played around, and Tesla turned all of eastern Long Island into a science fair, and that's why Brookhaven National Laboratory is right out there, right? So what else can I say? So that's why Manhattan Project was there. So the Chrysler Building was a 0-point energy tool. And Mr. J.P. Morgan said, well, that's nice, but, Mr. Chrysler, if you really do that, if you want to have a demonstration model of 0-point energy so I can't sell electricity, I'm going to, all those pictures of you with the little boys, I'm going to show those. And that was, that whole scene of what's his name, Donnie's buddy with the black book, that's been around for a long time, especially in America, because we are so prosaic about sex. So me, my gay, what do you think, kids? No, I am everything. Now, I've had threesomes, I've done all that, but it doesn't float my book. What I like is one-on-one intimacy. To me, sex is about having children. That's what sex is. Gender is about having fun. So whatever floats your boat. Me, I like a really smart, really interesting looking woman. I mean, it don't have to fit the prosaic model of what a woman is. No, like Christine. She was tall, long glass of water, and she looked like Lauren Bacall, and she would smoke a cigarette, but it was never a cigarette. She had these cigarettes, a roll for her, that were basically spliffs, meaning tobacco and lamb's breath, right? But they looked just like and they came in a box, and she would smoke those suckers wherever she wanted to, because she could, because she was Christine Barton. Anyway, but she never, that's the beauty of a really amazing person. They don't wear it on their sleeve. They don't have to be, they're not famous. They're infamous. So that, and all those years that I was in all of that, from 1967 till 88, 20 years. I was the dude. I was also the doctor. I was also, what other names did I have? Double doctor. Well, that came later when I became a consultant and a fellow, like Goodfellows, like a research fellow. And it was just like that. But it was just a handful of us. The rest of those clowns were, what do you call them? Students that are becoming doctors, Those poor people they were like slaves. And see, Donnie, he's like destroying that whole research thing, which is great. And whatever Downey's destroying is great. It needs to be destroyed. Now, there are going to be a lot of innocent people hurt in between, but that's only because they are addicted to that lifestyle, right? So I live on $400 a month, like a king, right? I don't owe anybody anything. I don't need anything. That's how it is. So that's the story here. I guess it is minutes because the other's seconds. Yeah, okay. What else are you guys saying? Take care. Okay, Pete, good to see you, buddy. Are you no, I'm not. We just covered all that. Void and deeply cloistered. So the cloisters, I hung out at the cloisters in New York, and that was built. It's a thing, a sacred site that was taken from Europe and brought to the Upper West Side of New York, right in this park where Grant's tomb is, and the cloisters are right up there. And the Museum of Natural History is kind of a couple blocks over there. Thomas Merton brought them there because there was a energetic spot, and he wanted to move that sacred thing that was in Europe that was gonna and so instead of getting destroyed and thrown away, he got some rich guy to take every brick and bring it over there. So the cloisters still exist in New York. And there are a number of different fellowships that, call that place home. Maryknolls are one, and deeply cloistered. Yeah. Daily U. Oh, Void. I thought we had an understanding. I love it when you guys talk to each other and I'm not even there. I'm like the grown-up who doesn't know what you're talking about. And I still don't, right? Pray. Yep, that's it, buddy. The best thing you can do is pray. And what is prayer? Okay, we're going to do a little prayer right here. We're down to only 2. The rest of you guys have left. My battery is almost down. So you know what I'm going to do? I am going to close out the show because when there's only 2 of you there, when you, I'm going to read what everyone has to say. Whoa, a lot of stuff. Boy, you guys are writing up a storm. Woo. So go back and look at this. Guys, I have no idea how to be able to see this stuff when it's up on my channel. Sensie Bob, I have to go. Okay, I love you guys. Let's see. Were you arrested by public? No. I work for police. When I worked for the BBI, that kind of gave me a whoa, you work for those guys? Yeah. So, no. And I never break the law. I've worked with lawyers most of my life, I know that it's just us. So I'm part of the just us. And I'm not, right? And so, I'm a psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist. And when you're one of them guys, and there aren't too many of us, see, that's the real secret to success in anything. If you're the only one, then A, they're not going to arrest you. They're not going to kill you. They're going to say, please, can you help us out? And I usually say, sure. We have to get the contract straight, but other than that, sure, no problem. You don't mean you hate it? No, I love you guys, Cracking my hog to this, but actually, for Jesus. Okay, guys, let's see. My first high school. Oh, yeah, my battery's dying. So I got to go, okay? It's in the red zone, and my phone doesn't like it, and my sound don't.